with Wiltshire Community Foundation. We have been running these sessions for a little while now because we found it really sort of helpful during COVID, and so we've carried it on so that the groups that we fund across Wiltshire and Swindon can meet other funders that might sort of complement our funding or support them with other types of work. And today we are very pleased to have Andrew Jack from Wiltshire Council to come and talk to us about the area board funding. Which is obviously a really key fund for a lot of local groups across Wiltshire. So without further ado, I will hand over to Andrew to go through his presentation and give us an update on area board funding. I'll just get his slides up for him. I'll hand over to you now. Oh. Sorry, Andrew, I'm just getting there. I'm being a bit slow this morning.
Give me a chance to apologise in advance. If you hear any banging and crashing in the background, that will be the dog going ballistic and my wife shouting at it to keep quiet. So apologies in advance.
Right, there we go.
Okay, perfect timing. Yep, so good morning, everyone. I'm Andrew. I work at Wiltshire Council and I'm one of the Strategic Engagement Partnership Managers. There's 6 of us that cover all of Wiltshire and help work with Wiltshire Council, Wiltshire councillors, town and parish councils, and all sorts of voluntary and community groups from each of our patches. I cover the Malmesbury, Marlborough and Royal Wootton Bassett and Cricklade areas, but there'll be one of myself that covers everywhere in Wiltshire. So there's always somebody that you can contact to have a bit more of a conversation about area boards and area board grants in particular that cover your patch and your specific local area. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there are area boards right the way across Wiltshire. We don't cover Swindon, so it's just the Wiltshire Council area. Each of our area boards are roughly centred on a market town. The only difference is southwest Wiltshire that covers the whole area and includes Mere, Tisbury and Wilton, and up north where I am in Royal Wootton Bassett town, and also the same community area covers Cricklade town as well. So next slide, please. So area boards are made up of your local Wiltshire councillor, all sorts of partners and other organisations, and area boards are about making, as it says here, transparent decision making in the local area. Back when Wiltshire went unitary, there was quite a bit of discussion around all sorts of decisions taking place way down in Trowbridge at County Hall. So area boards were a way to take that decision making and bring it back to local people where they were. And it's a way of collaborating with local communities and all sorts of partners to discuss local issues, help deliver Wiltshire Council's business plan, shape local services and get those delivered the way local people see them taking place in their particular patch. We can look at local issues and we're about building community leadership, community resilience and helping communities to help themselves. So next one, please. So it's more than a meeting. Each area board meets just 4 times a year, but outside of those formal meetings, there's an awful lot of work that takes place. As it says, there are mechanism for building and creating community-led action and bringing partners together to work on local issues. The area boards and the local Wiltshire councillors are able to offer leadership, influence and guide communities to help set priorities. And we'll look a little bit later at how our grant programme is able to influence those and take action to address those priorities. Area boards and area board meetings about engaging and consulting with local people, using the powers that the area boards have and our funding budgets to help stimulate local activity and to help overcome some of these local issues and priorities. Many area boards have got working groups that sit below them, and we also use a wide range of different formats and engagement techniques to go out and communicate with our residents, find out what they're thinking, and get two-way feedback. So, moving on, please. So I mentioned different types of engagement. So through area boards, we can run both local and county-wide surveys to find out just what people are thinking and get really detailed feedback just on what people feel. So a good example of that is just over a year ago, we held a county-wide survey of local school age young people, secondary school age people, and through the contacts that area boards, myself and colleagues had, we were able to get the views of about 5,000 young people as to what they think of a range of subjects in their local area. So that's a really detailed way of capturing data. Through area boards, we can work and develop different types of workshops, consultation events to get feedback. We can do very targeted engagement, both in terms of a specific audience or a specific topic to discuss. So just recently in Marlborough, with my highways colleagues, we had a really detailed discussion with the community about the state of highways and all sorts of issues within Marlborough town. And that proved to be a really positive two-way engagement where highways were able to hear exactly what local people felt about roads in their patch. And likewise, residents were able to hear from highways exactly just what's going on in their area. And it was the area board that kind of commissioned that and set that all up. And I guess ultimately this work is around sort of partnership with all sorts of existing community organisations, local people themselves, so that there's this dialogue between us in order to get things done. So moving on, please. All right, so I guess this is the bit that you were coming to find out about, is the funding from area boards. So over the last few years, last 4 years, in fact, nearly £5 million has been invested by area boards into community-led projects. You'll find that my colleagues and I and Wiltshire councillors are starting to use that word investment in terms of the funding that we have and that we allocate. We are using that word because we're looking to get something back from the projects that we help to fund. So rather than giving away the money, we're looking to invest it and get some kind of community return on that investment. The table below shows the budgets that we've got for the current financial year. We're right at the start of that year, so I don't think there have been any area board meetings yet to give away any of the money. So those 4 separate funding schemes there, they will all be full, and that cash will be available across the 18 area boards to invest into our communities. Each area board's budgets are based on a sort of funding formula, which is made up of, as it says here, population, deprivation that we see in each of those areas, and an element of rurality. So sort of delivering services and activities in sort of our very rural areas has got an additional cost that doing something in a built-up city will not. So each area has got sort of very varied, very different budgets available. So next slide, please. This is just a sort of quite a busy infographic based on area board allocations from the financial year 21-22. It's a combination of both sort of the statistics that we hold ourselves in terms of the money that we've invested, but also results and information that we've received back from a survey of grant recipients telling us about the projects that they've helped to deliver. So some of the big numbers, you can see that the area boards invested over £1.2 million in 21-22. And the total value of the projects that they helped to support was over £8.25 million. So that's a 6.9 times leverage in terms of that investment and the additional money that our funding has helped to bring into the county. Whilst area board funding isn't a great deal in big scale, if you're going to build a new village hall, for example, we hope that the process is relatively light touch and easy, and is a good way of accessing sort of quite simple money, and as a way of helping to lever in some of the bigger money from the bigger funders. I think these slides, these infographics are online somewhere else, so you'll be able to scan through these in a bit more detail just to see some of the work that our funding has helped to create. And there are different infographics here for the different funding schemes that we've got available. So if we move on, please. So we've got 3 different funding schemes available directly through the area board. The first one of those is our older and vulnerable adults budget. It's revenue funding, and it's about supporting older and vulnerable residents. Previously, this was known as health and wellbeing funding or health and wellbeing budget, but that's been expanded to just to kind of bring in the area of vulnerability rather than purely being about health. And again, it's expanding the range to include not just older people, but to expand that definition of vulnerability. In our rural areas, being particularly rural or geographically vulnerable is a big issue. At the moment, with the cost of living issues, financial vulnerability can be an issue as well. So we're able to look at quite a wide range of different projects and reasons why you'd be coming to this budget for support. In terms of some of the schemes or some of the issues that we're looking to overcome, isolation and loneliness is a big part of this scheme, but also projects that help to support mental or physical well-being, or projects that help to encourage gentle exercise in order to keep people fit and healthy within their own communities. As a revenue funding scheme, this money is able to pay for events, activities, trips away. It can help pay for people's time to deliver a project or deliver an activity. So it can be very flexible in what it can help to support. In most cases, if an application comes to the area board, it will first be considered by the local health and wellbeing group. They will have a very clear handle on that local area's priorities, so they'll be able to assess it against those priorities and then make a recommendation to the area board itself about that funding. And so that'll give you an idea of just how the application will be handled and the process that will go through before it reaches the local councillors. So we move on to the next scheme, please. And that's the youth funding that we have available. This is around providing positive activities for the 13 to 19-year-old age group. We can be flexible up to 25 years old for those people with SEND. We're having to be more strict on this age group. In previous years, we've been able to be sort of nice and flexible, particularly downwards in ages, to include certainly the first couple of years of secondary school, maybe even the last year or two of primary school. But unfortunately, we're having to tighten up on that age. So yeah, we are very much looking to target young people in that age range. As a revenue funding scheme, this is also around providing all sorts of events, activities, and support that can be educational or recreational. And there's a range of different definitions there that in ways that it can support young people. And again, if you make an application to the youth budget, it will be assessed by the area's local youth network, which is a group of young people and the adults from the groups those young people use. So like I said previously, they will have a really clear idea of what the local issues for young people will be, and so just how your project will make an impact against those local priorities. So move on to the next scheme, please. And that's the Community Fund, which is our capital funding scheme, and that money's there available to invest into local facilities and equipment that support local community and are important to it. Again, these projects will need to meet local area board priorities. So it's worth having a conversation either with your local Wiltshire councillor or with myself and my colleagues just to discuss how your project will meet those local priorities. Since this funding is capital, it's available to be used for purchasing equipment, going into community buildings, either new buildings or making significant refurbishments to existing ones. It can't really be used for repairs, but if there's a significant repair or significant refurbishment, then we can discuss that and just see just how that fits in with our priorities. In terms of what makes up an asset, our finance department have a ruling of something needs to last round about 5 years to fit with their definition. So an example might be if a football club was to come to us, we'd be able to help fund new goalposts, because we'd expect those to last many years. But if they came asking for new football kit, strip, that would be pretty unlikely to last 5 years, so it would not be an asset, and so that wouldn't be eligible. But again, depending on the ages of the people using that kit, maybe we could point them to one of our other funding streams. So the capital grant is only available to community groups and not-for-profit organisations. Town and parish councils can no longer apply to the capital grant, just with changes to our funding and the way that town and parish councils are able to raise precept. Unfortunately, we're not able to accept applications from them any longer. Okay, so those are the 3 grants. So if we now have a look at a bit about the application process and just what we're looking for in the applications that we receive. So I mentioned about this key element of investment and focusing on local priorities. We also look to see whether there's any wider community benefit into the projects that we receive. An example might be just recently we've had a spate of applications towards cricket nets, cricket practice nets. And so the question that I would ask immediately is who gets to use those cricket nets? If it's just simply the existing members of the cricket club, then I don't see a great deal of community or certainly wider community benefit. But if those new nets are going to be used to recruit young players into cricket or to help create a new ladies team, something that attracts new players into the sport or helps to build the social impact of that club, then I would see those new nets as the route towards doing that. That would certainly be the sort of thing that I would hope you'd have a conversation with your local community area manager just to get to the bottom of that and get that information out. So each applicant can make up to 2 applications per financial year, and each of those applications can be up to 3 area boards. So examples there are certain organisations provide services, say it's a youth club organisation, and they deliver youth clubs in more than one area board. they could apply to up to 3 area boards to help that service take place in those areas. In terms of the funding that's available, if the total project is going to cost up to £500, the area board is able to award all of that funding, 100% of it. If your total project is going to cost up to 1,000, then the area board can provide the first 500, and you'd have to find the rest as match funding. But if your project is going to cost over £1,000, then the area board can only provide 50% of that, up to a total value of £5,000. Now that's the sort of the blanket county-wide figure. I know that some area boards have chosen to award only a lower figure. That's mainly because those area boards have got a significantly smaller budget, and they are trying to make that go a little bit further. So, for example, Malmesbury area board, who I work with, they've set a local limit of £2,500 as the maximum that they would award. So again, this would be the kind of conversation that you'd need to have with your local Wiltshire Council officer or your local Wiltshire councillor, just to figure out what the amount they would be happy to award and how that fits into your funding and budgeting work. In terms of the match funding that you would be expected to contribute, we can take volunteer time as part of that. A general volunteer who might be marshalling an event or helping at a youth club, etc., we would put a value of £50 per day on their time. But if it's professional advice, then that would be a value of £100. And by professional advice, we mean if you're having a new website being built on your behalf and the person there is contributing their time, that would be £100 a day. If you're getting some architect's fees included, or some building work, and the local builder is giving their time as part of the contribution, then that's how we would count it. So the projects that area boards can fund, they must take place within Wiltshire, and they must benefit Wiltshire's residents. To go ahead, you must claim the money from Wiltshire Council within 12 months of it being awarded, and it must be spent within a further 3 months. So if you're looking to, if you've got an ambitious project to build a brand new village hall that might take 4 or 5 years to reach your funding target, please don't come to us at the very start, because we won't be able to keep that money available for you to start spending it. We'd much sooner you come to us when you're much closer to looking at the build, or when you can identify a particular element within the build that we can contribute towards. So hopefully it's a relatively short list of things we can't fund. So we can't fund retrospectively. So if you've bought something already, or if an event and activity has already taken place, we cannot help you with that. We can't fund profit-making organisations. We can't fund political or religious activities. But if that organisation is carrying out something secular, we could take a look at that. We cannot fund projects that are already funded elsewhere by Wiltshire Council. So there are some providers of services like Alzheimer's support that get core funding from Wiltshire Council. So area boards could not contribute towards those. But there are other services provided by Alzheimer's support that do not get funded by Wiltshire Council, and I know area boards have helped with those. So again, that would be something that we could have a conversation around to figure out just which elements are and are not funded already. And finally, area boards cannot help fund other fundraising activities. So just moving on, please. So the application process is all online. There's no paper version of the form we can send you, I'm afraid. You need to go to the area boards page on the website to take a look and to see the application form there. Like I say, hopefully it's a fairly light touch form, and we're not asking for great amounts of detail or pages of information. I've said before, it's really useful to speak with either your local councillor or else me and my colleagues about your project ideas, just to see how it fits both with the county-wide criteria and local priorities. And we can have a discussion around how it fits, and if it doesn't quite fit, just how to reshape things to make it work and fit our priorities. We now have a strict deadline of receiving applications 4 weeks before the local area board meeting. That's something that we've had to be much stricter on over the last year. So please have a look at the calendar. The dates of area board meetings are on our website, and just work out when the deadline will be. So the process for submitting the application itself, as I say, it's all online. Once you hit the submit button, my colleagues and I receive emails to say that it's arrived, and we'll review it. If there's anything wrong with the application or there's anything missing, we'll tell you just what we need to see, and we've got a process, a way of sending the application back to you for the changes to be made and then returned. So once we get the application, there's a system of automated emails to let you know that it's been received and it meets our criteria, and we can assign it to a particular area board meeting where the councillors will make a decision about the application itself. You are expected to attend this meeting and just speak about your project for just a minute or two, just to introduce it to the councillors. And I have seen occasions when councillors might not be too sure about an application when they've been looking at it during our pre-meetings, but having heard from the applicant just the value of that project taking place, their mind has been changed. So it's always really useful to come along to the area board meetings and promote your project. So like I say, the councillors assess the application and make a decision at area board meetings, and you'll get a decision about the funding on the night. So you can go away feeling happy that your application has been successful. And there's then a process of accepting our terms and conditions, etc., and telling us just where you need the money to be paid, and we can make that happen. So next slide, please. So a bit of advice around making applications. It's always really useful to get the support of your local town and parish council. Also to find out if they're able to make a financial contribution towards your project. Whilst it's not within the grant scheme criteria, I know there are some area boards and some Wiltshire councillors who do expect to see some kind of contribution, even if it's a very small one from the local council, just to show that they are supportive of the project going ahead. Whilst area boards are able to fund up to 50%, it's really useful that we see that you've investigated a range of different match funding opportunities, and not simply expected the area board every time to make as big a contribution as it's able to. For projects and applications to the youth funding, really we should see evidence that young people have been involved in putting that project together, and that they've been that it's something that they do want to see take place, not being done to them, if you see what I mean. We need to see that accessibility of the project has been thought about, both in terms of kind of physical access to a building, but also access to people potentially on a low income. So how is the price of taking part in that project been considered? Is there a scheme for free places for those that might not be able to afford it, for example? For the two revenue grant schemes that we have, we need to see that you have a safeguarding policy in place and also public liability insurance before we're able to release the funding. Sometimes we're helping to fund a brand new organisation and they don't have those documents in place yet. So we've got a bit of flexibility there, and that's the kind of conversation that you'd need to have once the funding's been awarded but not yet released, just to get to the bottom of how we can help you through that process. We need to see that there's something in place that will monitor and evaluate your project. We do have a very light touch way of monitoring projects. And once a year, we send a survey to grant recipients to find out how their project has gone and then some of the benefits that their project has brought. But we need to know, or we would like to know, that you're doing something similar yourself, just to check that your project is being successful and is doing what you'd hoped it do. And how would your project be sustainable? This is both in terms of kind of a more environmental element, but also in terms of ongoing sustainability for a project. So if the area board is funding an object, we funded recently some Bowls Club lawnmowers. It would be great to know that in 10 years' time, there's a process in place to replace that lawnmower without having to come back to the area board. So is there some sort of sinking fund in place that will help pay for that? Or are you looking at alternative funding to help support the replacement of that asset in several years' time? So moving on, please. Okay, so this is the last slide from me. Just got some links to really useful information. I'm not expecting you to scribble all of these links down, but I expect the slides will be shared following this morning. So I think everything that you need to know will be on the Wiltshire Council website and the area board pages. So there's a really detailed page about the grant funding itself. There's documents on there giving details of the grant scheme's criteria, and hopefully it's a very detailed look at what makes up a capital or a revenue application. We spent ages trying to think about every possible type of project and which side of that it would fit. And finally, there's a link to contact details for both me and my colleagues and your local councillor, so you can have a chat with us about your project ideas and help shape it around local priorities. So that's me done. So open to any questions.
Lovely, thank you, Andrew. I shall just stop sharing my screen so we can see